estimating answers is what I'm going to look at in this video. It's split into 5 parts. So we're going to start off by looking at multiplying, then dividing, and then both multiplying and dividing, and then looking at reasoning with multiplication, and then reasoning with division. So the way my videos work, I'm going to do the example on the left, which is I do. You are then going to press pause and I've got the example on the right, which is you do. And at the bottom, you can see the type of example this is. So we've been asked to estimate the answer to the following. When you're asked to estimate, what it's saying is, do not work out the exact value of this. Round each number in the question to one significant figure. So if I round the 23 to one significant figure, that becomes 20. And if I round 46 to one significant figure, that becomes 50. Now I have got a whole video on rounding to significant figures. I recommend watching that if you haven't already. So now all I'll do is, well, what's 2 times 5? 2 times 5 is 10. And then you just copy the remaining zeros. So we just copy these 2 zeros in now. So the answer here is 1000. Now, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a great example on the right. So we're going to round this to one significant figure, which becomes 90. And we're going to round this to one significant figure, which becomes 40. So I'm going to do 9 times 4, which is 36, and add the 2 zeros on. Now, moving on. Again, the exact same thing here. We've been asked to estimate. So round this to one significant figure, that becomes 40. Round this to one significant figure, that becomes 400. So 4 times 4 is 16. And now I'm going to add the zeros on. So there's 1, 2, 3 zeros altogether. And again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a go at this. So that becomes 100, that becomes 40. So 1 times 4 is 4. Add this 3 zeros on, that's 4000. Now here's some practice questions for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers, mark your work. Now moving on, we're looking at dividing. Now we've been asked to estimate the following exact same thing. We're going to round this to one significant figure, that becomes 600. And then we are going to round the bottom to one significant figure, which becomes 30. Now we can divide them both by 10. They both go in the 10 times table. So we can cancel this 0 and this 0. So we're left with 3 and 60. Now we know that 6 goes into the 3 times table twice, and they'll leave us with the 0. So the answer here is 20. So again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a go at the example on the right. So to one significant figure, this becomes 900. And at the bottom, that becomes 20. Now we can cancel the zeros out because they both go in the 10 times table. And then we're left with, well, actually, what's half of 90? That's just 45. Now moving on, it can get a little bit trickier when you have decimals in the denominator. So the denominator is the bit at the bottom. So if you follow the exact same steps, round this to one significant figure, round this to one significant figure, that becomes 0.02. Now you don't want decimals in the denominator, so we want to get rid of this. And the way we can get rid of this is hop the decimal to the twice right. So we're going to times the bottom by 100. We should also do the same to the top, okay? Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So if I write that here, we're going to times that by 100 and times that by 100. So if I bring that down here, that will then become 2 zeros on there, and that becomes 2. So it's saying, well, actually, the answer is just half of 6,000, which is 3,000, and that is your final answer there, okay? So again, hopefully you press pause and add it like this. So to one significant figure, that becomes 40. To one significant figure, this becomes 0.05. Now again, we want to get rid of the decimal, so we need to hop twice at the bottom, and we need to hop twice at the top as well, because you have to do to the top whatever we do to the bottom. So that becomes 40 with 2 zeros, and that just becomes 5. Now we know 5 and 40, they go into each other 8 times. Because of the 5 times table, that leaves us with 2 zeros. So the answer here is 800. So here's some practice questions for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers, mark your work. Now moving on. So this is combining both of what we've learned. So we'll start off by looking at the top, and then we'll do the bottom. So the exact same thing. We're going to round this to one significant figure. That becomes 600. We are then going to round this to one significant figure, that becomes 20. And then we are going to round this to one significant figure, which becomes 100. Now we're just going to solve that. So if we do the top, this is going to be 6 times 2, which is 12. And then we just add 3 zeros on. Okay, so we write 12, and we add the 3 zeros on, and divide that by 100. Now we can cancel this 0 with this 0, and this 0 with this 0. So the final answer here just becomes 120 divided by 1, which is just 120. Now again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a go at the example on the right. So we're first going to write this to one significant figure, which becomes 300. We are then going to write this to one significant figure, which becomes 30. And then we'll do the same at the bottom, which becomes 10. So now all I do is 3 times 3. That gives me 9. I copy the remaining 3 zeros and divide that by 10. And we can just cancel that with that, which leaves me with the answer of 900. And now moving on. So again, the exact same thing. So we're going to round this to one significant figure, which is 400. We are then going to round this to one significant figure, which is 1. And this is 2, so that becomes 400 divided by 2, which is just going to be 200. And again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a go at this. So that is going to be 600 divided by 10 times 3, which is 600 divided by 30. So the zeros cancel out. Now, 3 times 2 is 6, add the 0 on, that's 20. So here's some practice questions for you to have a go at. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers, mark your work. And now moving on. So here we've been asked to estimate the answer, which we already know how to do because that's what we've been doing so far. And then it says, is the answer an under or overestimate? And give a reason for your answer. So if I first estimate the answer, so round this to one significant figure, that's going to round down to 30. And this to one significant figure rounds down to 40. So the answer here becomes 4 times 2, which is 12. And add the 2 zeros on. So that's my answer. Now it's asking me, is it an under or overestimate? Because we rounded both the values down, it is an underestimate, okay? And the reasoning, I'm not going to write it all out. Your reasoning would be, since both values have been rounded down, okay? That's going to be a reason. And on the right, again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had a go at this. So that becomes 60 times 50. And 6 times 5 is 30, add the 2 zeros on. Again, this is an underestimate because both values have been rounding down. So just worth noting here that an overestimate would be when both values have been rounded up, okay? So if you had a question like 47 times 56, this would be 50 times 60, and this answer here would be, in fact, it would be the exact same answer as the one above, I've just realized, but this would be an overestimate because both values have been rounded up. So these are the only 2 cases you need to know about. You don't need to worry about what happens if one's being rounded up and down. You don't need to worry about that. So all you need to know is if both are rounded down, it's underestimate. If both are rounded up, it's an overestimate. So the answer to this bit here is an underestimate because they've both been rounding down. So this is under. And the answer to this bit here is an overestimate because they've both been rounded up. So here's some practice questions. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Now moving on. So we're looking at fractions now. So it's the exact same thing, a little bit different. So if you do this to one significant figure, that's 200. Do this to one significant figure, that's 50. So the answer is 4. Now notice that the denominator has been rounded down and the numerator has been rounded up. So when this is the case, it is an overestimate. So there's only 2 cases you need to know about in this. When the denominator rounds up and the numerator rounds down, it's an overestimate. And if it was the other way around, where the denominator rounds down and the numerator rounds up, it would be an underestimate. So the answer to this question is overestimate. So these are the only 2 cases, like I said, that you need to know about. You do not need to worry about any other case. What happens if they both round up or both round down? You don't need to worry about that. So again, hopefully you've pressed pause and had to go at this example on the right. So this becomes 30 and this becomes 6. So now in this case, that's been rounded down, that's been rounded up. And the answer here is just going to be 30 divided by 6, which gives us 5. So the answer here is an underestimate. And your reasoning is going to be, again, I'm not going to write it all out, is going to be that the denominator has been rounded up and the numerator has been rounded down. You have to write that to get the marks, okay? So here's some practice questions. Press pause and have a go. Here are the answers. Mark your work. Now, if you would like some more practice on this, I've got a full worksheet on this linked down in the comments below. And if you found this video useful, I've got loads of others like this on my YouTube channel. Do check it out.